we're having a baby. And I'm like, wait a minute, we talked about this. Love is an active word. It's a verb. You have to do work in order to keep it.
Yeah.
They don't see me struggle. I'm 47. They're all young little kids. They think I know everything. You know, our peace as a family is one of my number one goals.
Hello, I am Tony Cooper. I'm host of the Dad Manual podcast, and I'm here today with one of my favorite dads. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Ramsey. I'm a great dad, and I have some wisdom to share.
And I can't wait. I'm really excited about our conversation. You and I have known each other for 15 years, I think, something like that. Have a lot of opinions, have a lot of wisdom, and everything you do, you take on with everything you've got, and you always strive to be the best. And so you and I usually talk about things like business and other activities. You just ran an incredible, huge fundraiser. But like this conversation, we get to just focus on being a dad. And I know that you're somebody who loves being a dad. So why don't we just start with you? Tell me about your kids.
Yeah, my oldest is 12. Her name is Georgia and lives up to the name. She's got lots of personality. And we joked when she was little that her name would be in lights one day. And of course, she loves Vegas. And then our middle daughter, she's my little athlete. Her name is June. And it's interesting. So Georgia's like me, you know, quick-witted, opinionated, fast to process, fast to be in the conversation, wants to do well. And then June is exactly like my wife. Something that's interesting is I think I've fallen more in love with my wife as I've learned who my 10-year-old is, because there's like this genetic lineup between them. It's just like so beautiful. Like they both are empathetic lovers. You know, their love language is touch. So we're hugging, we're cuddling, you know. And as I've watched my middle daughter grow up and kind of come into her own, like I can squarely see my wife also growing up and being a little child. And so it's really interesting. And then Rosemary is our youngest. She's 4. We affectionately call her our upgrade baby. And just last night, I was telling her birth story, and I think it's worth doing the short condensed. We were in Tahoe, and I was like, okay, we've got 2 beautiful children. We should be done. The very next day, Mom sends June out and says, hey, go get your dad and sister. We come in. June is on the bed, jumping up and down, and says, I'm going to be a big sister. George is like, we're having a baby. And I'm like, wait a minute, we talked about this. And so when you're 4, you squarely fit on all the cars, all the planes, all the tickets, everything you can imagine. 4 works. 5.
Family of 4, yeah.
Yeah, a family of 5.
Tables at restaurants, everything. Yeah.
Everything. And so we affectionately call her the upgrade baby. We got a van, got a bigger house, we got a bigger cabin.
You got an RV from me.
We bought an RV, just another fun thing. So those are the 3 girls. And one thing about Rosemary I want to add is that she is, and I think this is true of all my daughters, is I get to see my best qualities in them and also my worst qualities because they're natural. It's like they came out of the womb. And so Rosemary is determined, smart, strong-willed, do it my way or the highway. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have some admiration for what I think Rosemary is going to turn out to be.
Yep. And then there's that, you know, nature versus nurture. And you've seen it. Like they just come out how they come out. And then the nurture part is, what is your responsibility around that then?
I think the one thing that we've done really good is intentionally focused on the nurture piece. And so one of our family things is we take care of our people. And so that's kind of a thing that we kind of consistently remind them. Right now we have a friend's daughter at the house and she's here for a week. Mom needed to go to conference. Dad has passed away. We just add her into the family like she's just another girl in our household. Yeah. And, you know, when it comes to taking care of our people, we've got a bunch of internal sayings that we do to take care of that nurture part of the equation.
Man, I love that concept of what family is. Like, family can be easily just driven down genetic lines, but once you start establishing what family is, and and also what you want it to be and what you wish your family might have been like growing up, it's such a natural thing to want to open that up to other people. Like, I have two kids, but I have quite a few other children that I think of almost as like my other kids, because they've just been part of the Cooper family in one way or another over the years, or sometimes consistently since they were 4 years old, and now been 20 years. And I definitely think of them as other children. It's a beautiful thing to open. The other thing that really struck me, I love what you said about June. My first is a lot like me, and our second is a lot like Tammy. However, my second's a boy, so I didn't really have that experience. But now that you're saying it, what I take away from it, maybe is what you're attempting to say, is that you're getting to watch essentially a version of Whitney as a child, which who you didn't know. So, like, our spouses, there's a whole part of their lives that we were not in, we don't have any exposure to. So the ability to somehow project who they might have been as kids through the experience of your own kid, and that your takeaway is you're finding more of a way to fall in love with your wife, is such a beautiful thing to say, Daniel. That's amazing.
Yeah, they're the same girl. They show up to soccer both nervous.
Uh-huh.
They prefer to be behind the scenes rather than in front of the scenes. And when somebody's hurt, they're the first to offer a helping hand, and they're also the first to let you off the hook. So if you
Mm-hmm.
make a mistake, which I actually really appreciate, because I'm very certain until I'm not certain,
Yeah.
and so anytime I find myself on the wrong, my wife and my middle kid have a lot of grace.
Mm.
I actually need that in my personal relationships,
Yeah.
just due to the kind of world that I live in.
Yeah. I'd like to explore a little bit where your ideas about fatherhood came from. So typically that's, we were kids, we had dads. That's usually the first time we start generating ideas about fatherhood. But what's been your journey, imagining like before George was born? Like, walk me through the impacts of your impressions of being a dad.
Well, I think you've chosen wisely in terms of topic, because I think I was 7 or 8 when I realized my parents didn't have it figured out.
Mm.
So we were Californians. We lived in a small town called Redding, California. My father lost the job to, well, just basically changes. The world stopped cutting down trees,
Hmm.
and he was in the forestry industry. And, he lost a job. So we relocated to Arizona so that he could go to a kind of a mechanics school, but then underestimated the amount of cost that would be, under planned, under intentioned, and really put us into a wild spot. We were plucked out of a place where I lived next to my grandma. All my cousins were there, all my friends. We went to a small school. Like, even though we didn't live in the nice part of town, we went to the good school. And even though we didn't have a lot of money, we had a lot of friends. And so it was like this little protected spot. And then when we moved to Arizona, it felt out of control,
Mm.
actually. And
Hmm.
so it was in that moment that I realized that I didn't want to model my adulthood after my parents.
Yeah.
And intuitively, as a kid, I was like, okay, something's off. This isn't right. Like, this shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't be in this position. And so, a couple things. What my father didn't do for me actually turned out to be, one of my superpowers. He wasn't intentional. So I became really intentional. He didn't give us anything. So in order to get anything, I had to work really hard.
Yeah.
And so as a young kid, I had, the newspaper routes. I mean, I started working when I was 12 and just haven't stopped,
Right.
basically. So, I'm 47 now. I was like, I had to think about that. So I'm 47, 3 kids, married almost 20 years, and I work hard and I have a lot of intention in every aspect of my life. And most of that is because of the way I saw my parents,
Hmm.
operate. I was a high school wrestling guy, and my coach was a really good father. So I modeled him. I had a good friend who, his dad was a good man and a good father. And so I modeled my world after him.
Right. Yeah, so that's great. I think a lot of the path to fatherhood is finding qualities that you admire and seeking to emulate those, and also finding things unsavory in some sort of way and seeking to avoid those. And so, your high school coach, your friend's dad, what were some of the qualities or characteristics you saw in them that you were like, yeah, I want to be like that?
Well, I can tell you, we had a really stark conversation. His name, Jet Thomas, my high school wrestling coach. We're in his van, and he had one of those 1980s van to fit
Hell
a
yeah.
million kids,
Yeah.
And, we were talking about dating and girls, and somebody had just cheated on somebody. And I asked him, well, what would you do if your wife cheated? And he goes, well, I would seek to understand.
Mm.
And I was like, what are you talking about?
Mm.
And it was one of those adult moments. I'm 15, 16 at the time. And he's like, well, if I'm not providing, love, care, all the things that my wife, needs and wants, and she decides to go out of the marriage to find those things somewhere else, I need to know what I wasn't providing for her, why I wasn't in relationship with her. And like, it
Wow.
was such an adult response to betrayal and a breakage of trust that
Yeah.
it just blew my mind. I didn't understand relationships like that in my world. There was just like this black and white world that I had lived in of like, oh, that was
Right.
betrayal. I'd leave them and blah, blah, blah. But,
Hmm.
now as a father, I understand the challenges of relationship. Having kids is difficult. Building a business has been difficult. Staying in relationship with my wife has been difficult. Like,
Right.
love is an active word. It's a verb. It's like you
Mm.
have to do work in order to cultivate it and keep it.
Yeah.
This idea that Hollywood, I saw my wife and I was struck by love and
Yeah.
it's been perfect ever since. I don't identify with that.
That's nonsense. That's why you don't identify with it. It's not real.
Well, and that adult conversation with Jet, what it did is it helped me understand that relationship is not what I thought it was. And as a kid, you have a very limited view of love and relationships and all of that. So, I mean, that was one example. Another really silly example, my dad and I got into an argument. He just said something upsetting to me. And as a boy, 14, 15, I remember we're in the car and he's just like, he's attacking me. And this is probably what you don't want in life, right?
Yeah.
I literally slapped the back of his head in the car. And then he stopped the car, got out of the car, went to get me in the back of the car. I got out. My mom gets out. He starts chasing me. I jump back in the car and drive the car away,
Oh
leaving
shit.
my parents
Oh my
on
God.
the street 2 miles away from our home. And
Wow.
so I drive to my best friend's house and, I'm crying. I want to call the cops.
You're afraid.
I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm pretty afraid. But I'm also angry and just
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be there anymore. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just don't want to be there. Right. It didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And, my friend's dad just had wisdom and he was like, you can't live here. Like, you can't live here and you don't want to go to foster care. And did your father actually hit you?
Uh-huh.
No. Well, what would have happened if he caught me? Like, I don't know.
Right.
He never did. So like he asked questions.
Mm.
And then my father was forced to deal with his shortcomings in a way that my kids forced me to deal with my shortcomings.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the hot tub with my oldest, and she had made some mistakes in school and was not nice to a girl. And I was like, hey, how did that go? Where are you at with that? Have you made it right? And she's like, well, I don't have to make it right. Here's what I did. She doesn't even know. And then in that moment, she was like, I'm out of here, dad. And she's 12. So,
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting is our relationship is shifting. And even with my own daughter, if I'm being constructive with her and, making sure she's doing the right things all the time, I'm going to lose that connection and that relationship.
Mm.
So I need to balance like giving her feedback when she asks for it, keeping her on the straight line when she's acting out of our family values, and trying to stay fun and being positive. Yeah, those are just some examples of the childhood crazy trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. a couple of takeaways from there. What I was thinking about when you were talking about the conversation with your coach is one, his response struck you really profoundly as a kid, but also 99% of men on the planet wouldn't answer the question that way.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I purposefully, and I think this probably is one of my superpowers, is I knew I needed help and I went to the person
Yeah.
who had the things that I wanted. He was married, he had 3 kids, he had 2 houses, he had a steady job, he was a strong physical man, he commanded rooms, he knew how to articulate himself. His response was exactly what I needed at the moment to understand that being a father or a dad wouldn't be a normal narrative in traditional life.
Right. And what's interesting is that the thing that you said you got from your friend's dad was the ability to ask questions. And what I took away from the conversation you had with your coach was something that I know really about you is that you're a very curious person. Like you're somebody who really seeks to understand. When you ask questions, they're not frivolous, they're not flippant, they're not space fillers. Like you ask real fucking questions. And so that is what allowed you to hear from your coach. Like you asked the question, that's the other thing. It's probably not a single other kid in that van that would have asked any sort of question of that level of depth. And so I think that's something that is uniquely a Daniel characteristic and is probably as a superpower. Like you've achieved incredible things in life. It's been so wonderful to watch you and your journey to create all this. And as a dad, that questioning, that asking questions probably is a double-edged sword, especially when they get to be George's age, when they get to be a teenager, when they're not really sure they want to share stuff. So what's been your experience around asking those really pointed, direct, heartfelt questions?
Well, we've had to create context to do it. A couple things. Every night we do family dinner and we do a high low buffalo. It's a high of your day, it's a low of your day, and a buffalo is any random thing you want to share that you think
Okay.
might. And some people call it
Right.
a rose, a thorn,
And
and
a bud.
but the idea is we intentionally protect 6 o'clock as a family, and we won't allow the girls to do too many team sports that ruin that time. They're all in some version of swim, soccer, ski. There was gymnastics in there was dance in there's music in there, but we purposely have protected dinner time. I typically will take each girl on a trip every year. So this year I'm taking my oldest to Chicago, my middle kid hiking in Utah. So she wants to be a survivor. I don't know if you've ever watched those survivor shows where
Uh-huh.
there's 10 people dropped in the middle of nowhere. So she's really into them right now. So we're going to go
Okay.
hiking in Utah for 5 days. And then our 4-year-old's 4. So at 6 years old, we start those. So every year I take them on a trip.
Amazing. Tell me about like the impact on you of having that one-on-one time and that adventure, and also what you believe the impact has been on your kid, and then like your relationship with each of them.
Well, this again is something that I stole from Mark Schwager. He's a good friend of mine, another business owner. And he started these trips because him and his wife actually had this time where they broke up. And
Mm.
so, in order to keep a tight relationship with his daughters, he was like, "Hey, I want to take you on these trips." The wife and the husband eventually got back together and they're, married and all that. But
Mhm.
he took these trips with his daughters and he learned things about them and he spent time with them, and the daughters choose the itinerary, they choose the where. I turn the world off and then I'm just there focused, talking and having fun. And they're very different experiences. With my middle kid, we went to a farm last year. With my oldest, we went to New York, and she wants to see Broadway and go to
Mhm.
fancy restaurants. My middle kid wants to milk goats and you know and so all it is just time, and to be focused and with your child and be on a
Mhm.
plane with them and go somewhere and just be with them and have fun with them. I think if I were to give new dads advice, moms deal with like the day in and day out drudgery of life. And not all moms, sometimes the dad
Mhm.
does that too. But
Mhm.
my wife is, making the meals, helping with the laundry, running them from one thing to the next. She's in the day to day with them. So she gets a lot of interaction. As a dad, I'm at work. I go to work at 9 and I usually am at home by 6. So having these trips have been a big part of me staying connected and then making sure that I'm fun dad during the trip is a
Mhm.
really big deal.
Yeah, it's access to you. It's also present dad. You're a guy who's got a lot of demand on you and your time. You know, a lot of dads struggle, like they're there, but they're not really there. What have you done to make sure that, especially like on trips like this, that you're able to actually be present? Because the impact on the kid is like that nagging problem inside of people, like, I don't matter. Man, you can really reinforce that of a kid when they want your attention, but you're so busy with your fucking phone. So, like, what have you done to make sure that they know that they matter when they're around you?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. Just put the phone away. I
Hmm.
mean, and be present. And I know that sounds simple. It is simple, but it's not easy. You know, putting the phone away during dinner, meals, interacting with them. They each like different things. That's what I think is the key to this. My oldest daughter, she reads books like crazy, and we have a similar book habit. I like
Mm.
to read, she likes to read, so we can connect. I got her into Dan Brown series, you know, and
Mhm,
she's like
mhm.
going through them. I can't get her into the Lord of the Rings series because the words are weird. And she's like, these words are too big and weird, you know? So we'll connect on books and on shows and on, you know, things like that. And then
Yeah.
my middle kid, we're making bread
Mhm.
with a hand mill. So taking the oats and turn them into, you know, actual wheat and then
Huh.
making our own sourdough. And then the 4 year old, you know, she wants to swim. Like
Mm.
all she wants to do is get into the pool. And she's like, Dad, will you jump with me? And
Mhm,
so, you know, trying to be present as much as possible, segmenting my day. So time is a big deal for me. Like you
mhm,
mentioned it, I run 4 businesses, have I don't know, 3,000 employees, some crazy number.
mhm.
Time is my thing, and it's the one expression of love. It matters. So if I can be present with them, if I can swim, if I can be in the hot tub with
Mhm.
them, if I can make bread, it took an hour and a half to get enough flour out of these things of just grinding, like circle
Yeah.
grinding. And so
Yeah.
she and I is just doing it. She's dropping it, I'm grinding it, then she's grinding it, and I'm dropping it. So as much as you possibly can, just being with them without the phone and without the distraction.
I have not heard it said like that, Daniel. I really appreciate that. Your time is an expression of love. Like that's a gift of love that you give. And man, it sounds so obvious when you say it, but like I've never heard it expressed like that. It's such a good anchor because that is an expression of love. You know, one of the things that I've noticed about you is you're a collector of people. Like you've sort of been in the, I would call it like a fathering mode. Before you had kids, you were coaching high school wrestling.
Yep.
That was the first time I got to see you in that sort of fathering space, and it feels really natural to you. And so I was curious, like, as you stepped into being a dad, like right when Georgia was born, how much of it was what you thought it was? What was totally different? What did you learn about yourself in that process?
Man, if you're a new dad right now, I think the biggest thing is you're selfish. Prior to having children,
Yeah.
everything is about you. And being married is you're like, okay, I'm going to add this person on to my life, right? But then you
Right.
have children and you're like, okay, I now am no longer the center of my world. They are. And I need to orbit around them. And in the beginning, I needed to orbit around my wife and what her needs were.
Hmm.
And so I think if I could go back to being a new father, I mean, it really was realizing that, you know, I'm pretty selfish
Hmm.
and my time, what I wanted, like just got thrown out the window and everything shifted in my thinking, in my management of my time and the management of my world. And I got hyper focused in a different way between, you know, you're a single guy and you start dating somebody. Then you're a single guy, you're dating somebody, you get married. Single guy, dating, getting married, having children. Like,
Hmm.
I think everything before having children is like the Daniel show. It's about me.
Even when Whitney was pregnant, it's still kind of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we've had the children, then more children, and then more children. It's like a true line in my life of before kids and after kids.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
I understand what love is, unconditional love, in a way that just wasn't real before. Like
Hmm.
I thought I knew love,
Right.
but it was conditioned. Like if my wife, if my life, if together we could, like that's
Uh-huh.
conditioned. And so
Right.
I learned unconditional love. I think it's made me a better leader, a better human, a better coach. Yeah, it's just made me better.
Yeah. A big category of selfishness is you could maintain it if you wanted to, I guess. I'm sure a lot of people do, but you're missing the whole point of what being a father is. And it's not so much that you're not selfish anymore. You just sort of expand the idea of what sits inside of the realm of selfishness. And it's like now my wife and my kids and all these other people, I get to be selfish for all of that, but it's not an individualistic thing anymore. And so what did you have to give up in order to be able to step into being the dad that you want, the one that's open to like seeing that there's only unconditional love? Anything else other than that is not love. I don't know what it is, but it's something. It's manipulation at its worst, probably.
Well, it's conditioned. I mean, versus unconditional. And I think I didn't really understand it prior to having kids. Like I thought I knew, now I know.
Yeah.
And it's shifted. It's shifted me a lot. I think if I were to give an example, we were just in Colorado 2 weeks ago on a
Yeah.
family ski vacation, and it was the first time that all five of us were on the mountain together. And what did it take to get to that point? I mean, it took from the age of 3, 4 for my oldest until really this year. She's
Hmm.
12. So
Hmm.
it took 8 years of patience, eight
Yeah.
years of encouragement, 8 years of let me get that glove, let me get this. And it's all to create, and this is a little bit of my like intentionality and vision coming out, but all to create a moment that we just had for the first time where we
Uh-huh.
were all five on the mountain skiing down the same hill, enjoying this family activity,
Yeah.
this thing that we can all do together. Now, the condition, Daniel, would have been like, go to your, ski school, get your lessons. When you're good enough, you can come join me.
Right. Right.
Or we could do what I did, which was, okay, let me help you down this mountain. Let me ride the magic carpet
Mhm.
500 freaking times,
Mhm.
like let me walk down the hill. I mean, doing that for 8 winters consecutively. And we're still doing it for the 4 year old. The 4 year old, we went down one run with her and she sat in between my wife's legs,
Yeah.
as those
Yeah.
kids do.
Right.
So, I mean, the difference is you have to have incredible patience. And I don't want to do that. Like, I'm a snowboarder, I'm a helicopter snowboarder. Like,
Mhm.
go up into the top of the mountain and drop on powder and just blaze down the hill. That's what I want in life.
Yeah. And that's who you are. Like it's your energy. You're somebody who establishes major impossible goals and then just goes and fucking figures out how to get there. And what I'm saying is like, man, the patience to allow things to happen at their own time is not a natural characteristic of yours.
No, and I think that's what it is. Now, multiply that by, do I want to play Uno? No. But having all five of my family members playing Uno on a cold winter morning, I want that.
Yeah.
And so scheduling intentional time of play, family things. I'll give you you mentioned it. I'm a high school wrestling coach. I'm 11 years in. I know everything about wrestling, like
Yeah.
everything, like
Yeah.
all the moves, all the rules. Like I am a professional high school wrestler.
Yeah.
I'm still wrestling and
Yeah.
I'm coaching, right?
Yeah.
My family during our Colorado trip, it was a family like board meeting is what we would call it, where we got together and said, "Hey, what do we want to accomplish for the year?" And they're like, "Hey, Dad, we know you love wrestling, but we don't like it anymore. We want to do something different."
Yeah.
My wife said that, Georgia said that, my oldest.
Huh.
And so we all landed on jujitsu as a family. I have girls, and I think there's something to be said about a girl who can get away, fight, not be afraid. And so they've been doing wrestling for 3 years, and they're like, we want to try jujitsu. And I'm like, okay, well, do I want to learn another sport? Do I want to be a brand new learner? Do I want to dedicate 2 hours 3 times a week to a thing that I don't already love? I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want any of that. Like, I
Right.
want none of it. In fact, hopefully in 10 years, we'll look back at this interview and I'll be like, oh, I wonder how jujitsu went? But I'm going to do it because this is something that all five of us can do together. We can all be brand new learners. We can all
uh,
struggle. We can all, bond on this new skill set together.
right.
I don't know what'll happen. We just set that goal like literally last week, but we're going to learn jujitsu as a family together. And so these are the kind of things that selfishly I wouldn't have done, you know,
Right.
12 years ago.
Curious about the impact on your kids too, because kids definitely see their parents before they become teenagers, but see their parents as like experts at things, like the authority on things. And to be able to go, I don't know anything about this, and we're all going to learn together, has to be an unbelievably interesting experience for your kids.
We'll see. I don't know. It's a new development. I think there's something about failing in front of them. You know, my story around business. I've made a lot of mistakes, but they don't
Yeah.
see the mistakes. They just see all the success. They see the house, the vacations, the things that we have that actually are different than their friends. And so they don't see me struggle. I'm 47. They're all young little
Mm,
kids. They think I know everything.
right.
I think it's going to serve all of us really well.
Yeah.
It's going to re-energize my mind, keep me engaged, active, connect mind to body, which I think is really important for kids. And so, yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be great for our family. And I hate it all at the same time.
And you part you hate is that you're not an expert at it.
No, the part I hate is it's like, this is not a thing that I put on my goals to accomplish. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to serve my business. It's not going to serve me personally. It's going to serve our family.
That you know of. I mean, I also trust that you have incredible instincts and you do things and it has unintended consequences. That a lot of your success, a lot of anyone's success, actually isn't the stuff that we set out to accomplish. It's the unintended things that we learned or found along the way. So I have no doubt it's going to be a fascinating journey. I definitely want to find out more as it goes along. And you also have always been somebody who's willing to make mistakes and to fuck up and not do it right so that you can learn. And so, a lot of what you talked about so far is really wonderful things that you've brought to your family. And I know you've learned some of those lessons the hard way. And so, do you look back on, you're like, God, I regretted that, or that's where I really screwed up as a dad? Do any of those things nag at you, like still sit out?
Not nag, but I get these little lessons. I think being positive and fun dad is the thing that I can bring the most value to our family,
Yeah.
and also pushing the limits on, what they're willing to experience. You know, we all seek comfort. I seek comfort, you do, my kids will. And so your job, I think, as a father is to bring a level of excitement and discomfort to their lives. We have everything that we could need, like everything.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I want to bring the fun dad as much as possible. I want to bring the challenging, like bring them into a new world. Jiu-jitsu is a great example. And then I want to create artificial challenges for them.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Our oldest wants autonomy on her life because that's
Right.
what you do at 12 or 13.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay, fine. We're going to give you $100 a month for all your clothes, all of your personal hygiene products, and I'll never give you another cent again. And I don't care. You're buying your own clothes, you're managing your own shoes. She was in her room doing face stuff last night when I went
Yeah.
in and say goodnight, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, Dad, all 12-year-olds have a face routine. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. Like my face routine is like clean the dirt and then go to
Yeah.
bed. Advantages of being a man, I think.
Yeah.
But she wanted her own autonomy, and so I've put barriers up. She wrote up the contract, and there was no line in it that says, I'll never buy you clothes again. I'll never buy you personal hygiene stuff again. You get a $1,200 a year budget, and that's what you
Hmm.
get.
Hmm.
Conversely, there was no, you need to track it.
Mm.
So she has a spreadsheet. She has a P&L as a
Hmm.
12-year-old, and she can earn money on her own if she wants more clothes or more shoes or more whatever face
Yeah.
stuff, right? And so I'm architecting
Yeah.
like a fake future self where she learns discipline of writing down all her
Right.
expenses. And then, like 2 days after we made the agreement, we gave her $100 into her account. I'm like, hey, how's that going, by the way? And I'm on the ground in our living room. So I'm
Yeah.
rolling my back out. It's hurting. And I'm on the ground and I'm looking up. So how did it go? And she goes, oh, yeah, Dad, I already spent 80 of the $100. And I'm like 2 days in. And so I just burst into laughter, and she's like, what? And I'm like, and I'm just laughing and I can't stop myself because it's just so funny. She's had all this pent up desire to control her own autonomy. So back to it. Fun dad, make them uncomfortable doing things that are
Yeah.
different or hard.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you how many times she wanted to quit swim, she wanted to quit piano, she wanted to quit skiing, she wanted everything.
Yeah.
If you can create or craft real world experiences where she has to struggle or do something and create discipline as a condition of giving her autonomy, then now you've done the trifecta as a father.
You and I have talked a lot about 7-year cycles, and you've now been through 2 of them with
Yeah.
Georgia, and she's about to enter her 3rd. And so, you're astutely noticing, like, it's the independence, it's the wanting to develop a sense of identity as separate from the family, which is a unique interaction with the world. And I love how you're leaning in on that, because one of the things I think parents make a mistake is they try to slow their kid down. And I always go, like, wherever they're going to, you should be there before they arrive. And I love how you've just leaned in and said, all right, here is your income. You manage your budget. You want to be independent, be an adult. And what an incredibly safe way to learn and potentially fail. You guys have always been really intentional. I've watched that with you and Whitney with your kids. Have been really intentional in putting them in, commercial, businessy, adulty type situations, which, they seem to have thrived in. And the other part is, like, the principles and values that you sought to instill. It seems like you've been really intentional about that with your kids. Can you talk about what that part's been like?
I learned this in business. When you call somebody bad, they have an emotional reaction, and humans always are like, no, I'm good. You see somebody and you're like, hey man, how's it going? And they're like, oh, it's going great. And meanwhile, their business is falling apart, their health is bad, they lost their best friend and somebody died, right? But you ask them and they're like, oh, it's great. So what we intentionally sought, and I think the Chinese have the best version of this, they call children subhuman, and your job as a parent is to make them full human.
Okay.
And so we're intentionally creating full humans through our values. So when one of our kids lies, we don't call them wrong or bad. We say, it's funny, Ramseys are honest. And were you just being honest in that statement? That changes the conversation. They're not bad. They are wrong. They're not innately bad people. They made a bad choice. And we can point to a value system instead of making them feel bad about themselves. And so these are aspirational things, because to be quite frank, my wife added Ramseys are kind. And I'm like, oh, am I really kind?
Aspirational. Yeah. What are the values that you established, like the non-negotiables in the Ramsey family?
Dreamers, thinkers, doers. We're positive. We don't give up. Honest, grateful, give back, learners, brave, hard workers, and kind. Those are the ones.
And you're like, and kind.
And kind. And it's at the bottom, and it was an ad. And actually, I think we moved it. I think it's positive and kind. And it's funny how when you say, you got to be kind, like we were at a Disney shareholders meeting, Bob Iger, who just recently retired as CEO. My daughter was there, and, my wife works miracles to get in the same room as he is with my daughter, who's 5 at the time. She goes up, shakes hands, and says, hi, my name is Georgia Ramsey. Nice to meet you. I think this is fantastic. We've trained our kids. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And then he goes, oh, well, hi, Georgia. Now, where are you from? What's your favorite movie? And she goes, oh, my favorite movie is Aristocrats, or some weird, thing out of the Disney category. But it turned out that they actually owned that catalog. And so she's like, it's not Disney, but this is my favorite movie. And Bob, he goes, well, that's wonderful. It's so good to see you here, Georgia. And I really appreciate you coming to shake my hand and being part of the conversation. Georgia comes up, and this is wild to me. She goes, Dad, I have a question. I'm like, okay, well, what's your question? And she goes, well, I just want to ask it. And so she gets in line with other private equity people, shareholders. And these are guys who are controlling 20, 50, $100 million. We've got a couple hundred shares, right? So she gets to the question, and she goes, hey, my name is Georgia Ramsey. I'm from Sacramento. I was wondering, how old is Disney? And Bob just goes, "What a fantastic question."
Uh-huh.
We're actually 96 years old as of this year, and we're preparing for our 100-year celebration. And so, this idea of kindness and being positive, it's a really important thing, but I had to negotiate with the wife and
Yeah.
we had to get on the same page. I think another piece of being really a great father is number one, choosing your spouse really well. Um, I feel fortunate in that. And then working to be on the same page
Mm-hmm.
about all these values and about how you want to live life. Because I see a lot of couples that don't get on the same page about their values, don't get on the same page about how they want to raise children, don't get on the same page about what they want in life or what their intentions are with their life. And I just feel really blessed that Whitney and I have been able to work out all of our differences. I like to spank. She hates spanking. We have a whole world around that. I spank a lot less than I might if my wife didn't hate it. But we've managed to negotiate through those kind of challenging conversations. And
Because you were spanked and you loved it.
well, actually, I have really good reasoning. Unless there's a consequence, I won't stop. And my oldest and my youngest are just like me. Like, I'll continue to act and behave poorly
Right.
until there's a consequence that
Mm-hmm.
hits me either in my heart or in my wallet. And so my daughters are the same way, or two of my three. One is like my wife, who doesn't
Yeah.
really need that. And the other one, I mean, we were outside with my youngest and we have this Connect Four game, one of
Yeah.
those big
Big
patio
ones.
ones. Yeah. And so my youngest, Rosie, she's stepping on it. And I'm like, sweetie, don't step on it. And I take her off and then she steps on it again. And I'm like, sweetie, come on, do not step on it. And she looks at me and with that little mischievous, like, and she steps on it. So I give her a little smack. That shifts everything. She realizes I'm not messing around. She's got a consequence. I mean, my wife and I don't agree
Yeah.
on that.
Right.
But I don't know. I think that's the one area that we don't fully agree,
Uh-huh.
and everything else feels very aligned. And I think without that spanking, Rosemary would continue to be oppositional defiant,
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that won't serve her
Mm-hmm.
in life.
Mm-hmm.
Just not a good. It's just not a good look.
Mm. I'm curious about, so a lot has changed for you in terms of like understanding family. Like the family you grew up in is not the family you have right now. And the family you have right now is something that you've cultivated, and there's a lot of love and trust and connection. And I'm just curious, has that caused you to want to approach your birth family any differently? Like, I don't know what your relationships are with like your dad, or I certainly know your brother and you have had challenges. Like, has becoming a dad done anything to shift your relationship with your family?
It's interesting. A friend of mine, another very wise person, Mark Smith, his mom kept him away from some of his like original family, like some of the aunts and some of the cousins, and they were just a hot mess. And so, as a parent, my job is to create connection with my kids, keep them safe, hopefully shepherd them into adulthood as full humans with some semblance of values that we all agree on. Now, the challenge is they may become adults and say, I don't like that one. I'm not going to do that in my life. And that's their choice, their prerogative. That's what being an adult is all about. You get to
Yeah.
choose who you are, right? But Mark said something really, really smart to me when I was struggling with this. And he said, your job as a parent is to protect their sanctity, their trust, keep their calm, keep that culture of, what family is. And so his parents didn't invite that crazy in to the home unit. And it's easy to get consumed by that or to feel obligated towards that. I want security for my kids. I want trust for my kids. I want them to feel like they belong. And I don't want any chaos because that's what I had growing up.
Yeah.
Now, you can't protect them from the world forever, but I think when they're young, sub 15, 16, anything that's chaos or weird just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't come into our world. We're even in a private school and it's called Acton Academy. And there was a parent who was getting crazy and they'd gotten a divorce. And that parent started bringing drama into the school, and the school was like, hey, you guys have to leave now.
Right. Right.
And because they decided to bring that chaos into the school environment and start affecting the teachers and other students. And it was just like this weird thing. And they're just like, hey, this isn't for us. And so protecting, our peace as a family is one of my number one goals in being a father.
Yeah, because you're essentially establishing all the neural pathways your kids have in their body. And if they're full of like chaos and drama and challenges, that's how they're wired. We do get a chance to help them wire themselves for success. Of course, the world's going to be what the world's going to be, but how we interpret it is everything to do with how our brain's wired. So really appreciate that intentionality around the development of your kids. I mean, they're great kids. They're going to be great citizens of the world. And you and Whitney are people who really care about making a positive impact. And so I know they're going to inherit all of that. And I'm excited to see how the Jiu-Jitsu family starts to fall into line.
Yeah, if we're rolling and arm barring each other and like trying to lock each other up in a tie, that'll be interesting.
That's awesome. All right. Well, hey, thank you, Daniel, so much. It was such a great conversation. I just love your point of view and your perspective. And I learn so much every time I get to talk with you. And just thank you for being vulnerable and sharing what your journey's been like. So really appreciate you.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. There's another guy in my world, and he said, your kids need 51%. Like whatever you think they need, they just need that one more over half. They don't need 100% of your energy. They don't need 100% of your time. They just need to know that 1% over enough. It's a really interesting perspective as a father. Is like, what do they need? And can you just give 1% more than they need?
So they get to be the majority shareholder of your attention.
Exactly.
Cool.
And also in control of how they need you to show up. They all need different things. So 51% is not what I think they need. It's what they think they need. And then you just do a little bit more. And that doesn't mean 100%.
Yeah. Great. Love you, brother. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Dad Manual Podcast. If you liked it, please leave us a rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really liked it, please share it with a dad you love. I'm looking to grow a community of fathers who are ready to change the world, and I need your help to do that. And if you got questions or topics you want me to explore, email them to me at thedadmanual@gmail.com. I would love to answer your questions on our next episode. Until next time, I'm Tony Cooper, and this is the Dad Manual Podcast.